Modern survival relies heavily on engineered implants and diagnostic machines. Approval for a mechanical valve marks the beginning of a lifelong surveillance process. Patient safety is secured through a relentless monitor that starts the moment a product is launched. To understand why, we must look at how different medical products interact with the human body. Pharmaceuticals act chemically. They rely on pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics, how a drug moves through and affects your system. If a patient has a severe adverse reaction to a pill, it usually means the molecule itself has an inherent, often uncorrectable risk. Medical devices act physically. They are engineered systems built from mechanics, electronics, and increasingly complex software code. This physical nature dictates how we handle post-market safety. A failing medical device is often correctable in the field. Manufacturers can push a cybersecurity patch, tweak a hardware design, or update the surgeon's instructions. This distinction between biology and engineering dictates global regulations. Authorities categorize the physical risk of every device and mandate continuous monitoring to force lifecycle improvements. Before any of that monitoring can happen, manufacturers must determine how dangerous their product might be. Globally, this is governed by a framework known as ISO 14971, the International Standard for Medical Device Risk Management. This matrix visualizes risk calculation. You multiply the probability of a harm occurring by the severity of that potential harm. This dictates regulatory classification, scaling upward from low-risk Class 1 to moderate Class 2 to high-risk Class 3. A simple, non-invasive tool like a tongue depressor or a bandage sits in Class 1. Diagnostic systems like ultrasound machines carry moderate risks if they provide false readings, pushing them into Class 2. At the very top, permanent implants like pacemakers are Class 3. The stakes for the patient dictate the rules for the manufacturer. The higher that calculated physical risk goes, the tighter and more demanding the regulatory grip becomes, before market entry and long after. Once a device is classified and cleared for hospital use, it enters a global surveillance web. Regulators in different regions take over, applying distinctly different regulatory philosophies. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration relies on a centralized, event-driven system. Under regulations like 21 CFR Part 803, the FDA tracks specific adverse events or malfunctions once they occur. When things go wrong, manufacturers must report the incidents into public databases like MAUDE, which researchers use to track safety trends. Across the Atlantic, the European Union's Medical Device Regulation, or EU MDR, operates as a distinct alternative to the U.S. system. The EU MDR mandates a proactive, life-cycle-focused approach to surveillance. Manufacturers work with decentralized, independent organizations called notified bodies to gather continuous clinical data and submit periodic safety update reports, proving their devices remain safe year after year. While the U.S. system reacts to field events and the European system requires continuous proof of safety, both serve the same goal: maintaining a continuous post-market feedback loop to catch physical failures. When a physical failure does happen, it triggers a process called vigilant reporting. The regulatory clock starts ticking the absolute second a manufacturer learns their device directly or indirectly caused a death, a serious deterioration in health, or a threat to public health. This timeline illustrates the strictest of those rules. Under the EU MDR, if a failure poses a serious public health threat, like a widespread contamination issue, the manufacturer must notify authorities immediately, with a hard deadline of just 2 days. If an incident involves a patient death or a sudden, unanticipated severe deterioration in a patient's health, that reporting window expands slightly, capping at 10 days. And for any other serious incident where a causal relationship to the device is established, the baseline requirement gives manufacturers exactly 15 days to investigate and report the event. These reports trigger what is known as a field safety corrective action. This might mean a global recall of a defective surgical tool, a mandatory hardware design change, or pushing an urgent cybersecurity patch to thousands of hospital monitors. Executing a rapid recall on a global scale is only possible because of the Unique Device Identification, or UDI system. This internationally harmonized barcode framework allows regulators and hospitals to trace specific individual physical units across international borders in a matter of hours. Medical device vigilance is a mandatory mechanism for continuous lifecycle improvement. By constantly monitoring, reporting, and correcting physical failures, the engineered systems we trust with our lives evolve to become safer every single day.